we would like to move ahead now with the session on which has jumbling of the sudden cardiac death, the burden of proof, and the cardiovascular disease prevention in the eye of the sun. May I straight away invite Dr. Sam Lingam from UK to chair the proceedings. Along with him would be Dr. Indrani from Hyderabad, Dr. Salil Garg, Harendra Kumar, T. Rajesh, Raghuveer K. R. Kura, IPS Kalra, Vittal Gupta, C.K. Ponde, Sonia Arora, and I.V. Levlin. We'll move on with the presentation, and this is on sudden cardiac death. That's the prevention of sudden cardiac death. May I invite Dr. Joy M. Thomas. He's a senior consultant, interventional cardiologist, and electrophysiologist from Chennai, and he'll be speaking for the next 11 minutes, followed by 3 minutes of discussion.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I must thank the organizers, particularly Dr. H.K. Chopra, for having given me this opportunity to be here with you in the sylvan surroundings of Abu. My topic is on prevention of sudden cardiac death. When should it begin? Let's have a look at this video. Sudden cardiac death just lies quietly, buried in the patient's genes and also his body, until one day it strikes with that rapidity. And when it strikes, you're dead and nobody can help you. You see it in normal people. People on the sports field, you have heard about footballers dying. This is Dr. Barry Gardner. He's an emergency room physician from Harvard Brigham's Hospital, one of the most famous hospitals in the world. And if you look at him, would you ever think that he can have a cardiac problem, let alone have a cardiac arrest? One day, he found himself not as a doctor, as a patient, and when he gazed up, he found the emergency room light staring at him. And they told him that you have had a syncope and you have had a cardiac arrest from which we revived you. So that's how sudden cardiac arrest can happen. It can happen in people who are absolutely normal. And athletes, as you know, are people who are very, very conscious about their diet, about their physique. So what do we as physicians do to prevent sudden cardiac death? First of all, it is important to have a general community education and the population education about these things. And while we go about that, the patients who come to you, or if you happen to be come across a person who's going to participate in sports or in a marathon running or in a cycling expedition or whatever, which requires tremendous amount of endurance, make sure you take a good pre-participation history, physical examination included, go into the family history, because the family history of premature sudden cardiac death is very important and a good marker of sudden cardiac death. Then you should look for specific evidence of cardiovascular diseases such as cardiomyopathies, ion channel and abnormalities and in these athletes. The class 2B recommendation as of today is to take a 12-lead ECG, and possibly an echocardiography may be considered as a pre-participation screening for heart disorders in athletes. Now, what is important, as I was telling you earlier, is not only community education, but also to make things. It's not important for the patient to be coming to the hospital and then you to save him from cardiac arrest. It's important to be on the road, on the places, public places, railway stations, bus stands, markets, malls, whatever, to have these automatic external defibrillators ready. And when you as physicians get the opportunity, please do spend some time in trying to educate people about the ACB of CPR, that is airway, breathing, and chest compression. And nowadays it is not, you just look for the airway and the breathing. You straight away start with the chest compression. So it has now become CAB. Chest compression start, then you look at the airway, and then you look at the breathing. And teach people the correct way to do a chest compression. This will help people in reviving a lot of patients from a cardiac arrest. You do not know whether it is a ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation as a layman, but the moment you start doing the compressions or give a thump, automatically it gets defibrillated, and the patient who has been in VT or VF can get converted to sinus rhythm very, in a way that can be almost providential. And it's important for us as community leaders, physicians, to see that automatic external defibrillators are available in places, or at least to canvass for them. And this through our organizations, whether it is Cardiology Society or Physicians of India Society, we should try to see that these things are provided everywhere in the public. Now, this can go a long way in preventing sudden cardiac death, because sudden cardiac deaths are happening everywhere, and many of them are just reported as cardiac arrest and just makes a small bit of news in the newspaper the next day. So in patients with structurally normal heart, how do we prevent it? There are conditions which have genetic linkages, such as the long QT syndrome, where in an ECG, the interval between the QRS and the T wave is prolonged, or arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia, which is a developmental anomaly of the right ventricle where the muscle is replaced by fibrofatty tissue, and you get islands around which re-entry circuits occur, or the Brugada syndrome, which is known as a cot death and seen in young people, particularly in the Southeast Asia region. Or then there is catecholaminergic polymorphic VT, which can happen in patients who are involved in athletic activity and all. And these people find that they have palpitations, particularly when they are involved in some physical activity like running, jogging, or immediately after that. And this responds very well to beta blockers. Then, of course, there is the idiopathic ventricular VT. Now, remember, in a patient who has a perfectly normal heart, and if you see a patient with such a patient with a what you call a monomorphic VT, and he has no abnormality in the heart, catheter ablation is a very useful thing. And this is done in the cath lab. It is done percutaneously. You map the patient's electrical activity during normal sinus rhythm and during the VT by various catheters placed in different portions of the heart, and then you can improve upon it by doing three-dimensional cartographic or other NSIDE type of mapping. But what happens when you come to patients who have illnesses? You have to identify high-risk patient populations. And who are they? Patient who has had a prior sudden cardiac arrest, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, are again at risk of sudden cardiac death. And these are the patient population where you should focus on prevention. Prior myocardial infarction patients may have repressed left ventricular function, but even without that, they are also a candidate because they do have a scar in their heart which can promote reentrant type of ventricular arrhythmias. Heart failure, symptomatic from class 2 to class 4, in patients with ejection fraction less than 40%, and particularly in genetic disorders with those with a family history of sudden cardiac death. Additionally, we have patients who have recurrent unexplained syncope, idiopathic and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy with syncope or with VT, right ventricular dysplasia, and long QT syndrome. Now, coming to the most common thing, it's estimated that in the US, 13 million people die of coronary heart disease in the US. And I understand from statistics which I read the other day from Indian Council of Medical Research, what is estimated in India is 4 million people die of coronary artery disease every year. But I think the figures may be much less because the reportage may not be as extensive as in other countries. Sudden death was the first manifestation of coronary artery disease in 50% of men and 60% of men. So at the very first time that they have a cardiac MI, it may be the first MI, they are faced with a sudden cardiac death and they are no more. CHD accounts for at least 80% of sudden cardiac deaths in Western cultures. And I believe so it may be here also. So when we look at patients who have heart failure, you see that 80% of men and 70% of women who have congestive heart failure will die within 8 years. And even at the end of 5 years, half of them are not alive. So an ejection fraction is a good method of trying to find out who are the patients at high risk of sudden cardiac death. And as the ejection fraction decreases, the percentage of sudden cardiac death victims also increase. So how do we prevent them in patients with advanced heart disease? What is the primary prevention? Well, what about drugs? Now, drugs have been studied in patients post-MI and in heart failure, and you have got the CAST, CAMIAT, EMIAT, SWORD, and DIAMOND-MI trial, which studied amiodarone, and also in heart failure patients, you have JESSICA, CHF-STAT, and DIAMOND-CHF. As you can see, the class 1C antiarrhythmic drugs in the treatment of asymptomatic ventricular arrhythmia with enkenide or flecainide. Flecainide is available in the country today, but there is excess mortality when you use them. What about amiodarone? Both CAMIAT and EMIAT have shown that although there are overall survival benefits, there is no overall survival benefit, and in fact, they may reduce arrhythmic death but not the overall survival benefit. Desotalol is associated with excess mortality, as the SWORD trial has shown, and dofetilide, although it's a good drug for converting atrial fibrillation to sinus rhythm, it does not provide any survival benefits versus placebo in the DIAMOND MI trial. What about primary prevention in heart failure patients? Amiodarone results are mixed. Jessica showed a reduction in overall mortality and sudden death, while as CHF stat did not show any benefit. Dofetilide did not show any survival benefits in the DIAMOND heart failure. What about the beta blockers? The beta blockers, in fact, have scored much more than amiodarone, although all of us tend to use amiodarone more than beta blockers as far as arrhythmia is concerned. Beta blocker drugs were found to be effective in reducing overall mortality 34 to 65%, my ladies and gentlemen. And some beta blocker drugs like metoprolol, carvedilol, and bisoprolol were found to be effective in reducing sudden cardiac death and reducing hospitalizations due to heart failure. Eplerenone in the efficacy sub-study of 1,048 patients with LVF less than 30% showed an overall reduction in mortality by 21% and reduced sudden cardiac death by 33%. So this drug is also available in the market, is a good consideration for reducing sudden cardiac death. What about enalapril, which is so widely used in our country? Does it reduce arrhythmic death? It is a good drug for heart failure patients. In patients with chronic heart failure, LVF less than 35%. It reduced overall mortality by 16%. It reduced overall deaths of heart failure hospitalization by 26%. But it had no effect, surprisingly, on arrhythmic death. But however, we do continue to use it, and it's a good choice also for in patients with heart failure. So then, what is the surefire? Apart from these drugs, omega-3 fatty acids have also been shown to reduce sudden cardiac arrest and reduce arrhythmias in patients with MI and LV dysfunction. ICDs are the mainstay of therapy to prevent sudden cardiac arrest. And as you can see, they can be combined, just a minute please, and they can be combined with the heart failure devices like this to provide not only treatment for heart failure, but also prevent sudden cardiac death. And there are primary prevention trials, as I said earlier, by post-MI in the MADIT must-and thing, and in heart failure patients, non-ischemic cardiomyopathy in the definite, and those with non-ischemic and ischemic in companion and heart failure. All these have shown a reduction of arrhythmic mortality using ICDs when they compare with drugs from 61% to 75%. So ICDs are very important in reducing sudden cardiac death mortality in not only in heart failure, in MI patients. And one of the class 1 recommendation today is anyone with a EF less than 35% and symptomatic in non-ischemic cardiomyopathy should be provided an ICD. And class 2 is NYHA class 1, where these patients were asymptomatic but EF less than 35% can recommend ICD. Of course, pharmacological adjuncts are a class 1 recommendation, biventricular pacing, class 2A, and again, drugs like amiodarone, sotalol, and beta blockers may be considered as pharmacological alternatives. Less advanced and common primary prevention, whenever the patient has got a prior MI, EF is greater than 40, ICD or antiarrhythmic therapy should not be given. HCM, when a patient has sustained VT or VF or one or more risk factor, requires ICD. ARVD with documented sustained VT with extensive disease, one or more affected family members, sustained VT, requires an ICD. And secondary prevention are of course important in patients with, as you can see, in patients who are resuscitated from cardiac arrest, who has had a documented VT, as seen by all these trials. So currently the class 1 indications of ICD is survivors of cardiac arrest due to VF or hemodynamically unstable sustained VT, structural heart disease, spontaneous sustained VT, syncope of undetermined origin. And one thing I would like to tell you, ICD should not be given in patients with advanced age and high mortality, advanced class 4 symptoms, heart failure, where there is limited life expectancy, patients whose VTs may be transient or reversible cause, because those have to be addressed. Patients with incessant VT or VF should not be given ICD. And in summary, my take-home message is, you have to recognize the risk markers of candidates at risk for sudden cardiac death. Candidates with high risk factor for need ICD. Radiofrequency ablation can reduce triggers of sudden cardiac death. The athlete and the marathon runner with a normal heart can potentially be at risk of sudden cardiac death. Genetic studies and counseling will make assessment more penetrative, and genetic treatment in future is something to look forward. Most important of all, ladies and gentlemen, is public education in CPR and the availability and use of AED. Thank you for your patient listening.
Thank you very
I have a small question that you know that sudden cardiac death is a very much in the day-to-day practice, and it's a quite a public awareness and other things. But the causes of sudden cardiac death in enumerated in 3 categories. One is no history of MI or no history of ischemic heart disease, with history of ischemic disease 45%, then 50%, and 3 to 4% in genetic. But don't you feel that it is a high time that we should have a data registry, sudden cardiac death data registry, so that we can have all the things that is that what was the cause, how the person suddenly expired and all. So do you feel that it is the right time to go for a sudden sudden cardiac death data registry?
Yeah, I think attempts have been done. There's a study called the Systolic Heart Failure in Asia Registry, which was sponsored by Medtronic and which has been going on. The data collection is on, but the results are not available. Apart from this, the Indian Heart Rhythm Society itself has taken such measures to see who are the patients who are having VT. In fact, there is a group which is looking at VT, which is spearheaded from Chitra Tirunal Institute. Dr. Nambudri is gathering it along with Dr. Narasimhan. And so the data are being collected, but they have not been published so far because it is in the process. I do agree with you, sir, that our own data is important to help us guide treatment. Not only that, in a country like ours, an ICD recommendation for a patient, it means a hell of a lot of money as far as the patient's pockets are concerned. So that is something we have to see, whether we are recommending the right thing. The other thing is the philosophy of life in India. If a person has a cardiac arrest when he's 70 years old, and I recommend an ICD for him, the thing he tells me, son, I am 70 years old, everything is done. I am happy to meet my maker. Why do I need this thing? You are preventing me from meeting him. This is what they tell. So, I mean, they're prepared to go. They don't want their children or other people to spend money on them. Why should they spend money on an old man like me? Let them use it for their thing. That is the philosophy here. So I think these type of things also have to be integrated into our thing. Definitely we do advise, but finally it has to be left to the patient. It has to be a joint decision where we not only act as physicians, we act as a friend, as a philosopher, and guide them into the correct decision.
Could I ask you a question, please? Sudden cardiac death in adolescents is a big problem, especially in children, adolescents who are in active sports. In Italy, everyone who is in active sports should have their echo done, and without that they cannot participate. In Britain, we discussed this matter. Many football team coaches send all their adolescents for echo before they take them into the team, because they are worried about sudden cardiac death while playing football. Manchester United football team, everyone have their heart examined on a regular basis, because that's how sudden cardiac death is looked into at the moment.
Yeah,
but it's your comment.
Sir, I would like to go with you on this matter, but sometimes there are acquisitions in the media that we physicians are overdoing this cardiac checkup program just to make money. And I'm sure our people who have been avidly reading the newspaper or TVs have might have come across media reports where this is happening. So this is where organizations like the World Congress or Cardiology Society or Physicians of India, if they make a guideline, nobody can object to it, or even the Medical Council of India. If they make a guideline, okay, all sports people who are going for marathon 20 years to this thing must have an echo or an ECG done and a physician. Fine, there's no criticism.
Do we have time?
No, we have done with the discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. George Thomas.